Hey, everybody, here we are live with Change Sucks, Long Live Change. So that's what we're going to be doing this week, even though we thought maybe we'd do it next week. We're not. We're doing it this week. So here is what we're going to be talking about. Basically, let me go back a little bit. So let me talk about who the IMS is. We are sponsored by the Institute of Metaphysical Science, and we were established in 1959 as the Margaret Laird Foundation, researching, exploring, living, and teaching the science of being and the causal nature of consciousness. You can look at our website at scientificmetaphysics.org. We have been basing the last several of our episodes off of government is self-government. And when we look at how we govern ourselves, how we own our own self-responsibility in the matter of our lives, all of that thing, it's an excellent book. So as we walk through this, that's why we keep referencing it, because it's just so rich with really good things. So as we think about change and as we think about going through change, the truth is that our reaction to change is it sucks and it shouldn't be this way. For the most part, that is our reaction. So that's what we want to look at, is like, well, what is that? And what is it about change that there is to really live and to embrace? So this episode is called Change Sucks. Long live change. Yay. All right. So as we go into this, Betty, I want to welcome you. What is it that you want to say about this? I know we have a few things to kick it off. Mostly that metaphysical science demonstrates the oneness or coincidence of all experience to be both human and divine at the same time. And Mary Baker Eddy stated that science understood translates matter into mind, and that science is religion's new tongue with signs following. You want to say what that means? New tongue with signs following.
Yeah, it's a new view of the way we live our daily lives. And the signs following are the difference that it makes in the way our life shows up if we are living this science point of view.
Okay. And then each of us actualizes the science of being when all that is or seems to be is identified accurately as allness of infinite mind, infinitely manifest. So if we're looking at change and we're looking at infinity, don't the two go hand in hand? If you're looking at infinity always occurring, that means things are never the same.
That's right.
Okay. So
and somehow never the same doesn't jolt us like change.
Right. Exactly. So anyways, what would you like to say? I know I asked the question, then I went on, but what would you like to say about this before we jump right into the quotes?
Okay, well, the science is presented in a way that would have you think it's a rubber stamp for everyone. Everyone that's a scientist would have the same experience. That's not true. We experiences occur for every individual according to their language of understanding, their discernment of language. The way I live my life is perceived and perceptually individual to me. Even though we live in the same house, for instance, you would not have the same experience of living that I have.
Right.
And that's true universally.
Right.
Yeah, there aren't any duplicates anywhere.
Right. So why do you suppose it is that we resist change?
Well, I think when we live ourselves as two-legged animals, as human beings, it's more comfortable to stay in a rut, to have it always look the same.
Right.
And I don't have anything to worry about.
But you know what? There's changes that we love. Like if we won the lottery, we'd be probably doing a happy dance. But then if something happens, like we get in a car accident, well, that's not good change. Or if we don't agree with the way some new law passed, well, that's not a good change. Or if we don't like something else that's going on, well, that's not a good change. So is it a matter of our judgment about what we're seeing unfolding that creates resistance to change?
For sure, it's anything that's about. If it's about, it's not integral to living.
Right.
It's an observational
I
view.
could say that I know that what's happening is bad, and I'm not even judging about, except
No,
for
and
that I
you will,
am. I'm just not saying that, right?
and you will say that, and you will live and experience it as bad.
Right.
After a while, that gets to be pretty old stuff.
Right.
And there's nothing but complaint and upset going on with you with that.
That's right. Didn't Dad used to say complaint is poverty?
Yep, because it is. It's poverty of experience.
Okay, I like that. Poverty of experience. That's cool. All right, very good. So as we explore change, what's the challenge as we start to look at change? What is the challenge for each of us in that?
Well, the challenge in all of scientific living is self-responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
If I think there is something occurring outside of me, outside of the being of me, there's nothing I can do about that.
Right.
It's going to be a case of living with the concern of what next, because I have no control at all.
Mm-hmm.
Oh dear, what's going to happen next? And then what? And how will I defend myself or protect myself or get myself ready for whatever's going to happen next?
Mm-hmm.
And with the science view, you would see that you generate the world you walk through out of your own language discernment. When I know that, then I have to take a look, and there's a certain amount of responsibility in that I generated this look in my life. For what reason? Because it has value in discovering myself.
Right.
So it isn't going to be your experience. And even if I get concerned and upset or whatever, it is my living of it that opens up to me a new way to take a look at what's going on and who am I being that having the world treat me this way.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's always a one-on-one. There is no duplication. There's no other out there. I live myself as I am and as I perceive myself. And when I don't enjoy what I'm living, I take a look at the way I'm setting it up to occur that way. And I set it up to occur that way by believing for even an instant that it's over there, outside of my consciousness, unavailable to me. And it's going to do something, it threatens me. It's going to do something that I have to react to.
Right. And I like that. It's going to do something that threatens me, or it's going to do something that I just don't like.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that we resist. I don't know that we resist change much if it's what we perceive as good.
Well, if your perception is, like, oh, I like pink. That doesn't mean that the world should be pink. Mm-hmm. It just means that I like pink. See, we have everything about ourselves mean something horrendous. And it isn't horrendous. It simply is who I'm being, is somebody that likes everything pink. So guess what? In my world, as much as possible, I'm going to have everything pink. Mm-hmm. There are going to be plenty of people that come by and say, oh, for heaven's sakes, Betty, grow up. Nobody wants to be around that pink anymore. And then I'm going to be defending myself. Or else I will, well, what other color should I have? Well, I don't like that color. I like pink. That stuff. The truth of the matter is that in order to take a look at my own generative capacity to govern my world, I can deliberately determine for myself that I am going to do this or not going to do this. And then I look at my living of that.
Okay.
I can live it with joy. I could live it with disappointment. I could live it with fear.
Mm-hmm.
All the
Sure.
ramifications of how you can live something. The thing that allows me to not attach any emotional reaction to what goes on is to understand that the nature of being is good, capital G.
Right.
The nature of being is whole. It's complete. It's satisfied and satisfying. And it's fulfilling and fulfilled. It's joyous. It's free.
Okay.
So with that in mind, I'm pretty free about walking on, knowing that whatever's going on is being generated by a principle that functions as good and whole and free, and on I go.
Okay.
What I do is have a wake-up call every once in a while, and something doesn't look whole and free and wonderful to me. And then I think, well, what's that about? And I discover that it's because I thought it was happening over there. Something else was the generative principle having it occur.
Right.
When I do that, then I'm concerned because I've no control.
Yeah.
I've lost myself, as it were.
Right. Okay, so let's jump into the quotes.
Yep.
So, on Government is Self-Government on page 33, Margaret Laird wrote, "The three-dimensional world of matter in which we apparently functions in us as us, mind."
Yeah. It's all a mental percept. And it's a universal mind. It's not a brain function. I'm not talking about the human brain trying to figure things out.
Right.
I'm talking about an intelligence that has the world function.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And then in Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy wrote, "If mind God is all power and all presence, man is not met by another power and presence that, obstructing his intelligence, pains, fetters, and befools him."
Yeah. Exactly.
So say that last part, like, okay, so if mind God is all power and all presence, man is not met by another power and presence that would obstruct, pain, fetter, or befool him.
That obstructs his it obstructs his intelligence. If I'm functioning in the three-dimensional world, for instance, and saying, wait a minute, there's one mind, it's all powerful, it's generative. I should not be met by something that comes along and says, ha ha ha, it is neither.
Right.
And what I do is think, oh, there's something out there opposing me, opposing my being, my idea, or whatever. And when I have that going on, it got war.
Right.
And the victim of war is always me. It's my war, and I'm the one that suffers.
Okay.
And the way to stop having war is to recognize the principle that's functioning called Betty in the world she walked through.
Right.
And whatever it looks like is whatever it looks like. And I don't have to attach any meaning to that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then in your book, Mind is the Athlete, on page 19, you wrote, "All experience originates in and as consciousness. We live ourselves unaware of the universal nature of consciousness, being each one of us and giving presence to the entire spectrum of existence." So the whole causal nature of everything is consciousness.
That's right.
Showing up, the only way that we can perceive it or think it or see it, that is what is showing up. And like we talked about in an earlier episode, it's that reflection, that past that we're seeing constituted by being.
Well, and what we call the past doesn't occur before now.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing occurs outside of now. But our belief about it is what gives it that flavor. And that's what gives us a problem.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So going back to government is self-government on page 33, Margaret Laird wrote, Mrs. Eddy conceived the equation for demonstrating the equivalence of matter and mind. Mind equals I equals us. In other words, science, truth, does not deny matter, but recognizes its existence to be self-conscious mind.
Yeah, the God idea in action.
And she's talking about matter as language, the whole language, yes?
Yeah, we just have read that she also says that science translates matter into mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, but by matter, we're talking about everything in the phenomenal world.
All observation.
Okay. What you can see, hear, feel, taste, touch.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. And the thing is, when you read Science and Health, you have to keep in mind that she had no metaphysical scientists to talk to. Mm-hmm. She was writing to a world that had no idea what she was talking about.
Right. Probably like a lot of who we're talking to.
Talking to ourselves.
That's right. So in Science and Health, on page 125, Mary Baker Eddy wrote, similar idea as what we just talked about on the right side there. As human thought changes from one stage to another of conscious pain and painlessness, sorrow and joy, from fear to hope, and from faith to understanding, the visible manifestation will at last be man governed by soul, not by material sense. Reflecting God's government, man is self-governed.
Yeah. See, man lives and moves and has being reflectively. The action of the God idea we call man. So it's an action presence. And that's important to keep in mind when you're studying science, because otherwise you keep focused on this two-legged picture you've got of yourself. You've no idea who you are.
Right. I remember, right. Last night we watched the movie Soul. That's a Disney animated. Anyways, I highly recommend it for so many reasons. But at any rate, one of the things that she says here, and I kind of want to go down that avenue and look at it a little bit, but the visible manifestation will at last be man governed by soul. And you made a statement about, well, what is soul last night? What did you say?
Are you kidding?
I know. But what is soul? You said, well, what is soul?
Yeah.
And soul is that sense, right?
I don't know what to do with that.
You just you turn it off.
So I don't know. I'm sorry. Apologize.
So what defines soul? And it's that richness, that taking it all in, that intuitive.
Soul is the experience of life.
Right. So the experience of life as it shows up, being present to it, not the experience of life based on my judgment about it.
Well, I'm talking about life with a capital L. It's an experience of the God idea in action. Okay. Life. The energy of spirit.
You could say it's like wonder. Could you say it's like wonder? Is that a characterization?
Yes, it could be that. It's bigger than that. It's like of course. It's like comfort because it's so. Not because it's going to do something for me, but just because it's so. It's like getting the feeling that all is divine love everywhere, no matter what it looks like. It's all right. It's love present. It's like, oh, an experience that all is well.
Okay. Okay. And it's also kind of, I think there's also a quality of seeing things with fresh eyes.
Yep. Yep.
You know, okay. And then in your book, Mind is the Athlete, on page 19, you wrote, universal consciousness, self-expressing, shows up physically as all form and substance, including our human existence.
Yep.
So as we look at this whole thing of change, isn't that interesting? Huh. This is one that I missed, and it has the wrong headline on it. Anyways, there we go. More change. That's just not right.
Something's wrong here.
Something wrong here. I don't know. But at any rate, as we look at change and our resistance to it, it's all showing, and the infinite nature of it. If it's all infinity, then there is no repetition, which would then say, what is it that has it appear as though it's the same and not change?
What has it appear uniquely to each individual is the language of his discernment. It doesn't help me understand something if you explain it the way Henry would understand it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't help me if you are explaining it to your friend who works with you and knows what you're talking about. It only works for me if it's explained in the language I understand.
Correct.
So, the catch-22 in all of this is that science translates the observable world into the action of principle, into the action of the God idea.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense only, all is well.
Right.
The minute I look at it as if it were separate, outside of my consciousness, constituted of brain, blood, bones, and all that other stuff, I don't have any science going for me.
Okay.
But science says all is mind. So it's all mental. And the minute I think it's some other substance functioning, then I've got a separation that produces discord for me.
Right. Right. Okay. So the challenge is again to be willing and acknowledge source or whatever, acknowledge consciousness.
Acknowledge the facts of being,
right,
and let go of the belief that you've got about those facts.
Okay. So going into our final set of quotes on government, page 35, Margaret Laird wrote, "Science does not argue with nor endeavor to change what is seen, heard, and felt." Let me say that again. Science does not argue with nor endeavor to change what is seen, heard, and felt. And this is where I would impose science is not a pill. The conscious identity or thinking that is I lives its objective universe as its own self-conscious being.
That's the key.
So there's no argument that needs to be made with whatever shows up.
That's right.
Just a welcoming.
Allow it to be.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then in Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy said it this way: the perfection of man is intact.
Yep.
Always.
Yep.
And you, in Mind is the Athlete on page 20, said all is infinite consciousness, universal mind, infinitely self-expressed, self-generated, self-maintained, and self-acknowledged.
Yep.
So change ain't no big thing.
And I like the quote that Marcel Proust gave: the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. And that's similar to what you said earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not about the...
And that's where your willingness comes in, by the way.
Right.
It isn't about having new landscapes, don't have to have a new this or that or something else. Don't have to move across the globe. I just have to see the facts rather than believe the fiction.
Right. So the whole thing here, the challenge around change is to just allow it to be, allow whatever to be, and to notice where you're pretty much thinking change sucks. Because you know right then that you got some resistance going on.
Yep.
That you're attributing cause outside of the truth about and the source of what's showing up in the first place.
And you know what happens with resistance?
It persists.
The situation persists up the yin yang.
That's right. That's the same thing that I used to say about either I have 20 years of experience or the same experience for 20 years. They're not the same. But at any rate, okay, so that's really what we're talking about here, is we're talking about seeing that infinity is the nature of all of it. And infinity never repeats itself.
Right.
And anything that I've got going on where I'm not willing to have show up exactly what's showing up, then I've got some judgment, opinion, some sort of resistance going on, something in my human living where I'm not actually acknowledging source.
Yeah. And that's when, Bicknell Young, who was Margaret Laird's teacher, said to her one time, "Who's talking? Margaret Laird or you?" And you can say to yourself, "Who's talking? Betty or me?"
Right.
And it looks the same, but it's not the same.
Right. Right. Exactly. All right. So that's the big takeaway, and the thing to look at is, what are you resisting? If you think something's going on that shouldn't be going on, there it is. So
what's having it stay there?
That's right. Be with the facts, acknowledge the facts
Yep.
of what's so and what is causative. Free yourself up and things can just flow.
Yep.
All right. Well, until next time, that's it for today. We will see you next week at 7:00 Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. And that's what there is to play with. So next week, we will be talking about a really great subject called "It's Nothing Until I Call It." So that's what we're going to be talking about next week. And again, looking at what did I do here?
Government is self-government.
We're looking at government as self-government, right?
Yes.
So that's what we're looking at next time. Again, and it's an excellent book. If you're interested in looking at that, then you can go out to scientificmetaphysics.org and pick up a copy, order your copy. They're actually in brown like this. You can order your copy and have it sent to you. Excellent, excellent reference and food for thought. All right. Until next week, we will see you then.
Bye-bye.